Yes, it's John G. Sutton. Tales from the Jails. I'll talk today a little bit about celebrity type prisoners that get into prison who are well known outside and well known inside, and how they manage to manipulate the staff, which to a certain extent they did. When I was at the Scrubs, of course, on D Wing, which was the Lifers Wing, there were a number of celebrities there. I mentioned the other day Leslie Grantham, the guy who played Dirty Den. He was there. He was in the theatre team there. They put a show on when I was there. Well, it was Entertaining Mr. Sloan, I believe it was, by Joe Orton. Never heard of Joe Orton? Yeah, seriously. Yeah, Joe Orton served time in prison as well, believe it or not, for a very silly crime. He was defacing library books. He did it for a joke, him and his friend, you know. What they did was, they believe this, they got a poem, the collected works of John Betjeman, and they took the jacket off and put lewd pictures on the jacket of John Betjeman's book and put photographs and stuff inside. They were defacing library books. You got 3 months for that. Imagine that. Simple, eh? But yeah, so Leslie Grantham was in the Scrubs, and he was part of the theatre team, and he took some part in that play. Strange thing was, they put the play on, and they had a load of. It was open, not open to the general public, but it was performed before an audience. But the audience were from outside. You know, they came in, put it on in like the gymnasium at the Scrubs. It was I was there. It was very well done, extremely well done, and a number of other celebrities there. One I haven't mentioned before was a guy who's gone on to become a born again Christian, I believe, and a pillar of society. And his son's really well known now. That was Jimmy Tibbs, the boxer, yeah, the boxing trainer. Jimmy Tibbs was in on B Wing, D Wing, sorry. Yeah, Jimmy Tibbs was on D Wing. Yeah, kept himself to himself. Seemed a very nice, decent man. You know, considering he managed to get himself locked up for armed robbery. Don't think he was doing anything other than driving, but he was in there. Of course, I've previously mentioned Tony Lambriano, who was at the end of his sentence when I met him, and he was cooking meals because they used to have a little kitchen that they could cook in, and he was an extremely good cook. Was a chef, I would say. It was a really good standard, you know, because they used to prepare themselves meals. I think it was a kind of competition between Tony Lambriano and Gordon Goody of the great train robbery fame. And Gordon Goody was one of the brains behind it. You know, he wasn't just a driver like Ronnie Biggs. Ronnie Biggs that's all he did, was just drive for them. Wasn't anything special. He was treated with great disregard and disrespect. Quite why they smuggled him out of jail, who knows? But he made it off to Brazil, didn't he? One or two other well-known inmates who managed to get themselves in there. Of course, there was Jim Hussey, who was one of the great train robbers. He was in there, but kept himself to himself. Yeah, generally speaking, you know, when people have got a long time to do, and don't forget they sentenced the great train robbers to something like 30 years. Yeah, but they didn't do that long. They did about 12, 15 years altogether at the most. Yeah, and Biggs, of course, escaped. Yeah, but yeah, one or two very really famous inmates came in there. And there was talk, of course, about George Blake, the spy. How did he? I mentioned this before. How did he get out? Because I saw where he was, where he was supposed to have got out of, but I saw it and I couldn't fathom how he would get from the landing to the windows because there was a distance of about 6 foot. and the window was considerably higher than the actual landing itself, where he was supposed to have got out of. And then he dropped himself down, and it was quite a drop as well. The whole thing just doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right when I saw it. When I saw it, I just said no. I mean, I was reasonably athletic at the time, but I can't see that I couldn't fathom myself doing that. So yeah, George Blake was a spy. He was well known. That look him up, George Blake. Yeah. So the number of infamous inmates have passed through the scrubs. There was a poet, Basil Bunting. Have you heard of the poet Basil Bunting? No. Well, he was in the scrubs. I think he was probably a conscientious, you know, refused to go to the war, so they probably put him in there for that, you know, speaking out against the war efforts. Basil Bunting, yeah, Crash Mesh at Midnight or something he wrote. I heard some poems by Basil Bunting. Yeah, I'll read a poem at the end of this. I'm not going to sing a song today. I'm just going to read a poem. And I've previously mentioned about John Stonehouse. Yeah, he managed to use his celebrity status to persuade the governors to play chess with him at lunchtime and all that nonsense. Yeah, I wouldn't have none of that. But of course, he managed to do that. And then there was I tell you, who was in there as well. The Nicholas Hoogstraten was in the scrubs. You've ever heard of Nicholas Hoogstraten? I believe he's still alive. He built this multi-million pound mansion somewhere outside Brighton in the countryside. Massive, great place. Said it was a mausoleum, so he didn't have to declare it as tax, because mausoleums are exempt from tax, believe it or not. So he said it was a mausoleum. Give him due, it's certainly quite an inventive idea, isn't it? One of my former friends went in there with Nicholas van Hoogstraten. I don't know personally Nicholas van Hoogstraten, but this guy did. He was a friend of mine. And he was shown round there. He said it's absolutely enormous, but there's been no work done on it for about 15 years. I would think that it's going to rack and ruin now. But Nicholas van Hoogstraten, yeah, is a slum landlord, or he was, owned hundreds and maybe 1,000 houses or something like that, rented them out at exorbitant rates, and so I believe. Yeah, quite a dangerous character. Was imprisoned for instructing somebody to throw a hand grenade into one of the people who had got on the wrong side of him, and blew their office up and killed them in the process. So if you're going to do that, yeah, you can imagine that not to be crossed. So if you're watching this, Nicholas, good luck, mate. Anyway, I'll tell you this. Lots of people who get in there, they've got a name, they use that name to actually blag their way through and get the staff to kowtow out of them, so to speak. I didn't actually go for that myself. I didn't think it was the right way to do it. Treat everybody the same. And if you do that, then they can't fault you, really, if you do it fairly and honestly. And really, my idea of locking people up was to actually prevent them from escaping, and that was my job. I wasn't there to entertain myself at their expense. So anyway, celebrity prisoners. What a waste of a life. That is the song, Dinger, but it's not a song I'm going to do today. It's a poem by Rudyard Kipling. It's not that one, actually. It's another one. Yes, I know. He wrote If, which is one of the most famous poems in the English language, but this is The Way Through the Woods. Now, when you listen to this poem, I'm going to read it to you. Yeah, think these woods that he's describing here contain memories of what has been and what may be again, And is it in the mind of the person who's reciting this, or is it actually there? Does it exist because everything exists at the same time? So this is The Way Through the Woods by Rudyard Kipling. They shut the road through the woods 70 years ago. Weather and rain haven't done it again. And now you would never know there was once a road through the woods before they planted the trees. It is underneath the coppice and heath and the thin anemones. Only the keeper sees that where the ringdove broods and the badgers roll at ease, there was once a road through the woods. Yet, if you enter the woods of a summer evening late, when the night air cools on the trout-ringed pools, where the otter whistles his mate, they fear not men in the woods because they see so few. You will hear the beat of a horse's feet and the swish of a skirt in the dew, steadily cantering through the misty solitudes, as though they perfectly knew the old lost road through the woods. But there is no road through the woods. There you go. The Way Through the Woods by Rudyard Kipling. I hope you enjoyed that. Tales from the Jails, do come back. I'll be here again.